I'm just going to link it in a few different places. We can gather a little bit of interest. It should be up right now. Call in if you want to link it in a couple of places. I'll put my little waiting screen up first. Yeah, otherwise you'll get like a reverb and it'll be annoying for everybody. Weird flex, but okay. Yeah, I'm just teasing you. It's fine. Just a moment here. Perfecto. You're coming in and out there a little bit. You may want to mess with the sensitivity on your microphone a bit. Okay. There you go. Let's see if I can go and look at chat without it. Perfect. Well, we're live, and now we're free to kind of move forward with this. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is extremely early here, and today we're going to be talking about the campaign and the future of the mod, and kind of where we're at with progress in terms of development. So, in the back here, you can see one of our developers. That's Vision. He's working on, I'm not entirely sure what, but I'm fairly certain it's campaign related. He'll be able to tell you all about that in a second. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, we will open a question period a little bit later on, and we will take them throughout the process. So hold on to those for a few minutes here while we get ourselves kind of oriented, and then please fire away. I'm sure you guys have tons of questions. So yeah, Vision, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing and what you're working on? Mm-hmm. 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 Which is going to be one of the big features of the campaign moving forward is one of the things that we want to try to avoid, that we want to try to avoid since the very inception, is steamrolling and how it can kind of get bored. You may want to turn up your mic a little bit, Vision. Apparently some people are having trouble hearing you. You can get a little bit bored going into that mid-game where it just becomes a bit of a spam fest, and your armies and the battles they fight don't really mean anything. So one of those speed bumps and sort of obstacles you have to overcome while expanding is that there are going to be a lot of garrisons lying around, and your production for your military is also going to be limited to some fairly specific regions with specific resources, which you're going to want to target and try and expand into. Apparently, they're having trouble here. Some people are having trouble here. And can you guys hear me at all? That's looks like my sound here is pretty fine. Yeah, I may not be catching the Discord, so I'm just going to turn it up here. Say something, guys. There we go. See if that helps a little bit. Yeah, my mic's coming through okay. Desktop audio, not so much.
Yeah, I went to check just
there we go. Now you guys should be able to be heard.
Powering off.
Yeah, say something. You're coming in at
I hope
loud and clear. You should be able
better
to be
now.
heard. That's all right, guys. I'll I'll interpret for the guys in the who are in the chat with me right now. It says that they're coming through my desktop audio, like the channel is looking like it's fine. So if possible, you can try and turn it up a little bit. Otherwise, yeah. So what he's working on right now is our region map. He's working on some of the bridges and the river crossings and things like that. Important little areas. And it looks like he's probably over in the Philothron territory. Yeah, that's what I thought. Just a little bit south of Paradise on the lands of Fingolfin.
I'm just adding trees right now, really trying to make the land a bit better.
Oh, there we go. They say they can hear you loud and clear now, so it should be okay. You can just talk away.
Ah, nice. So
yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say that it's still really early on, so there's still a lot of open map and open regions to try and cover and add some detail to. It should be basically the entire stream doing stuff like this, because it is what needs to be done.
How's it going to be different from Divide and Conquer? Stuart can probably answer that question for you. He's pretty familiar with Dak. I think he plays it quite a lot.
Is he alive, though?
I'm pretty sure he's here. Until he gets back.
Stu is most definitely alive.
Oh, okay. Well, until he's able to chat, I'll kind of stick my foot into the pond. As somebody who's not super familiar with DAC, take this for what it is. So instead of talking about, how we are in relation to DAC, I'll just tell you kind of the things that we want to see that's going to make our campaign unique, just its own experience. One of the... One second there. Phone call. One of the big features is going to be escalation sieges. Actually, one of our first custom sieges. I won't tell you the map just yet. It's not quite ready. But we have previewed it a little bit on our Discord. Escalation sieges are going to be a big part of it. So instead of, you take Minas Tirith in, say, one battle in Third Age. If you want to take some of the major cities in the campaign, like Menegroth, Angband especially, I think we have Barad Ithel earmarked for this as well, but we did kind of have to cut down on them a little bit recently due to region restrictions. You will take them in several fights. 2, I believe, is the number that we ultimately decided on. So, to use Menegroth as an example, you will attack Menegroth. You'll basically take the gates and the first level of the city, and then there's going to be another region directly behind it, which you are also going to have to take, because these regions will be major productions for the military, for whatever faction they happen to belong to. So you can't just kind of halfway it, bottle people up, because they will throw 20 stacks at you. And of course you want to be able to take the whole region, because they're quite rare and quite valuable when they're that powerful and that able to be exploited for resources and for military production. So that's a big one. Escalation sieges, kind of adds a little bit more to the experience, not just like a one and done, like, oh, I took Angband in one fight. That's going to be something that's going to be quite difficult for you. Not only are you going to have to contend with the armies inside the city, but of course there's going to be garrisons as well. So that's a pretty big one. The other one ties directly into that, and that is going to be the way that we use resources and tie them to tech trees and your military production capacity. Specifically, iron is going to be your big resource. Settlements with iron are going to be relatively few and far between. And if you want to build up more than just your basic economic and like tier 1 military production buildings, then you're going to have this sort of special resource in the province. And that is going to make the places that do have it a little bit more valuable, and it also has the added benefit of cutting down on the spam a little bit, because not every single region in Balerion has the capacity to be turned into like a 7-layered cake fortress of doom. There are specific ones, and fighting over them and controlling them is going to be really important. Yes, we will have EOP in this mod, absolutely. It's too good of an overhaul to not use. And because we have plans for so many bodyguards and so many units, that EOP is just necessary. And it is also going to add some additional functionalities to some of the units. Swim is one of the ones that I've been trying to get working for ages. And true berserking for a lot of our berserker units is something we're going to start playing with a little bit as well. And all those features, before we even put them into campaign, we will test them out in multiplayer and see how that kind of changes the experience a little bit. I think Colin had something to add there.
By the way, I'm not sure if the stream is catching my screen, to be honest.
Oh, perhaps it's not. I don't know.
Let me then start transmitting.
There we go.
Maybe it will now.
Should now. Yeah, according to my OBS, it is.
No.
Yes. Oh, it is now. Good.
Yeah. Let's see here. What about general BG cycle? Stream is great. Okay, it's probably because I'm tapping out C chat, so we'll just.
No, it's good now. I'm watching the stream, so it's good.
Okay.
It's play again. Never.
Stop breaking it, goddammit.
It's not here.
Let's
Maybe
see
it's
here.
because
Will there be restrictions for upgrading settlements? Yes, absolutely there will be. Some of the factions that we've done so far, like Assyrian, they are a little bit limited in the settlements they can build. I think one of the other ones... Oh yeah, this is a pretty big reveal. One of the other factions will be the Easterlings, who we intend to split into 2 factions in multiplayer and in single player, so you will be getting another more expanded faction in the form of the Easterlings of Ulfang and the Easterlings of Bor, so that's always really exciting. But the Ulfang Easterlings will be limited as well in terms of the level of settlements that they can build. That being said, they will still have robust tech trees. You will be able to kind of kit out your settlements and have much of the same benefits, just not the same defensive benefits that some of the more architecturally inclined factions can achieve. General BC cycle as in
restrictions for upgrading settlement.
Yeah, that one I just covered. General BG cycle. Yes, the answer to that is yes, but I cut Colin off, so please continue.
So, as far as upgrading settlements, like, for people like Feanor, who have their main thing is small regions, but super strong fortresses, will those fortresses start off as fortresses, or will you because I know, well, so Himling is the capital. That'll be obviously a big
Mhm.
city. But then there's Amon Arab, south. There's the Pass of Agon. There's Aranthere's Halls. There's all these lore-based regions and cities. How do you think we'll start?
I'd say most likely they'll start as some kind of fortress. We do have a distinct. I mean, Medieval 2 makes the distinction between castles and like actual settlements. So some of those fortresses may end up as castles. Castles are generally limited to more military focused buildings. They've got larger garrison slots. Mostly they're just like military production facilities. So you will see that, but obviously, we have to account for certain things like, there's some of our new loading screens. Enjoy that. We have to account for things like,
Powering off.
Feanor being able to churn out a whole bunch of elite units on turn one. Obviously, that would kind of undermine the experience a little bit. There you go. There's Himring right there. Lovely. So that's something that we do think about, or that we will think about when we, have more of these custom settlements done. Obviously, you don't want people turning out elite armies on turn one. That would be ridiculous. And
So as far as
ruin the
far as
experience.
Feanor goes, they got all these fortresses and castles. Their
Mhm.
military would be fairly substantial, but they would be lacking in the
They'll be lacking.
trade.
They'll be lacking the military infrastructure to immediately start churning out a ton of high tier units, but they'll have access to some greater caps, I suppose, of the mid tier units and the sort of starting troops and things like that. One of the other
Right.
things as well that's important to note is that having and not having an iron settlement, or like losing one, not necessarily the end of the world. The region map is going to be flooded with mercenaries, custom legendary companies, all kinds of things like that you'll be able to recruit as you move through the lands, because of course the pools and the recruitment times and things like that are going to be significant. Like logistics will be something that you absolutely want to pay some attention to when you're playing the Silmarillion campaign. So to sort of offset that, so that you're not so strapped for troops that you're afraid to fight battles, you will be able to recruit some mercenaries and stuff on the go. Obviously, being mercenaries, they'll be a little bit more expensive, and they'll be limited, of course, by troop number, how many you can recruit, etc., etc. But that is one other aspect of recruiting that's kind of important to note. That's not just like I have a bunch of fortresses and like my military is just going to explode. Like other people will have ways to get around it, but obviously it's going to be quite helpful to have those fortresses.
Is Gondolin going to be accessible through land, or will it be scripted to open a path to the valley? I think if Vision can probably go to the map right now.
It currently
Show 'em-
is
Show 'em
accessible.
what Gondolin is.
Yeah, I'll show.
There's a script answer there as well. That's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So you will be able to at least as it is right now. You are able to access it. Vision's going to show you that on screen. But there is also a script that Finn was talking about that he would like to implement. He's one of the people I think who's been working on EOP, who's also still on the team. There will be sort of an invisible wall script of sorts that you have the opportunity to either disable absolutely from the word go, or it'll be something that disables over time. So after a certain period of turns, then your sort of invisible wall will disappear. We are looking at some ways to make that a little bit more interesting for Gondolin, but I think of all the factions that exist at the moment, Gondolin is probably the one you can turtle the most with. I would like to see like the Hidden Vale expanded a little bit, maybe add some of the gatehouses and things like that, or the Hidden Pass. But yeah, at the moment, those are kind of your options. Like you can get in there, but at the same time, you can be kept out by a script if you so choose.
Stu is alive. I think he just talked.
Well, there'll be unique traits that generals can get.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That's just
I
medieval too.
got
Of
a
course.
whole list.
A very simple one is just Conqueror of Gondolin, for example. Those are unique traits that people will be able to have.
Medic was able to get a script working for having the faction leader and heir inherit unique general abilities. Do we plan to include something like that? Medic is actually in our Discord, and we've had a few chats with him about getting some of the scripts that he's worked on for EOP working. So that's, I don't really know too much about that, but I'll have a look at it, and we'll, if it's something that we feel would add a lot to the experience, then absolutely. And there are some Medic scripts as well that we are planning on implementing, with obviously changes made to fit the campaign.
As far as traits and ancillaries go, me and Stewie have been working on those for the last couple weeks.
Someone said,
at the moment, we probably got 50.
Yeah, we have a lot of ancillaries and all that, all the traits and stuff. Someone asked if you could show us around the map a little bit with the toggle fog of war on.
Yeah, sure. Let me just
Thanks, Lee.
save, and I'll be showing.
Generals getting abilities according to events and buildings. Yes, there are a few buildings that we've done in the only two tech trees that we've really nailed so far is the two Easterling factions and the Green Elves. We've sort of been going by factions that are getting new reskins and new models. So Gulfin will be up next, and we can show you the models maybe a little bit later on a different stream. But yes, so there's a couple of buildings in there that do add traits over time. I would like to see that expanded. I think that having the ability to customize generals into a proper governor, or if you need someone to be like a field commander, I think that's something that you should have the ability to choose for your non-established kind of canon characters. So yeah.
Okay, so why should I start showing off the map? Well,
obviously we only have 2 factions in the game.
That's not really an option.
Yeah.
So I can guess I start along the coast and just go down.
Is this the updated region map? Do we only have 150 on this one? Do we have 199?
It's 150.
Okay.
It's not the 199 over here.
So what you guys are seeing here is missing about 49-ish regions, I think. Finn and I went over and we added a whole lot more to certain areas to make it a little bit more interesting. In particular, the eastern half of the map, which is has some very large regions to it. Assyrian in particular is going to get broken up a little bit more, so there's more things for you to do. How is Maedhros going to be able to assemble a massive army? Will it be through a script, or are we going to conscript the army? Are you thinking like the Union of Maedhros? I don't think we have any concrete scripting plans for how we deal with the Nirnaeth, but it is Finn and I have had very heated conversations over how we want to represent the great battles. So whatever we decide to do, you can be pretty confident that it will. They will, at least in our eyes, do the battles justice. Whether it's going to be like a fully scripted event, or if it's something that's going to be, in many ways, entirely player driven, or some sort of mix of the two, where we meet in the middle. We're not 100% sure yet, but yeah, that is something that's, especially the Near Naiath, because it's so important in the history of the timeline. But yeah, nothing concrete yet. our last stand armies in this mod as well. Also, how big is the stream delay? I honestly have no idea. I think I'm getting it in real time, but you guys may not be.
Maybe the last stand is something kind of annoying.
Yeah, I don't think we have plans for a specific last stand. Correct me if I'm wrong, unless maybe I'm forgetting something.
Maybe if it's a certain event or something, but
yeah,
not for every fact.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot of garrison armies and things like that you have to contend with. So you'll be having those little last stand moments, I suppose, throughout the campaign, but you're not going to suddenly have a bunch of armies show up in territory that you've already conquered. It feels super gamey, and that's not something that I really would like to put anybody through. Like anybody here who's played the Warhammer 2 like High Elf like Vortex campaign or like any of the Vortex campaigns knows how frustrating it is to just have big ass armies suddenly appear in the middle of your territory with no explanation. So
immersion breaking.
What about the garrison script? It's gonna be tied to some buildings, although some larger important settlements like Gondolin, for example, will have their own sort of special script. But you will be able to add more to it via buildings. I think that's currently the plan. Is Morgoth in game? Not currently, but we do have a model for him. Castellan, the fellow who made...
Big bad.
Oh, yeah. The fellow who made our current Sauron, which is really cool. He has done he's gone through a few iterations of Morgoth. One we do have previewed on the ModDB, so if you want to see, that particular direction that he was thinking of taking at the time, that's something you can do. You just have to find our ModDB. It's Silmarillion Total War. Pretty easy to find. But he will be in campaign. He'll be a general that you can't really move out of Angband, since we're kind of trying to stick to the script on that one. But if Angband is directly attacked, then you will be able to use Morgoth. And he will be very scary. But like many of the elephants, they have very, well contoured weaknesses. So, I don't know. Maybe they'll take the wind out of people's sails if, Morgoth gets taken out on the first battle by a bunch of javelins. But that's we got to work within the framework that we've established for years now. So yeah. How about scripted reinforcements as well, combined with the garrison script? Just an example. Yeah, absolutely. Finn,
Scripts is something we'll figure out later.
Yeah, scripts we're working on, and Finn is very much a big fan of not putting things on rails in terms of like overall campaign gameplay. So I got a feeling that we'll probably meet somewhere in the middle. I don't want to put things on rails either, but I would like to see some scripted reinforcements kind of pop in, and things happen at relatively set intervals, because I think that's structure that we
for, like, historical events, so like paladin reinforcements and stuff like that.
Exactly, and it's important because those are things that we can plan around at regular intervals, and we can like craft an experience and also balance the campaign around. So I imagine you'll see a mix of both just garrisons and like scripted reinforcements as well. Another one here. I understand it's really hard to make the campaign follow the events of the Silmarillion. Map looks great. Choke points and forests are very well located. I mean, if you say so. I honestly, it's just all weird pixels to me, but I'm glad that you're able to make something out of it, man. I'm sure Vision appreciates that as well, so thank you very much.
Oh yeah, recruitable generals.
Yep, there will obviously be recruitable generals outside of your own, starting canon characters.
And a lot more like standard bodyguards made for factions.
Yes, because EOP is super nice that way. You were saying there, Stu. I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
Oh, it's fine.
Oh.
You finished it. It's fine.
Yes, there will definitely be recruitable generals. There will be More standard general bodyguards. My understanding is that EOP can basically allow us to make as many general bodyguards as we want, and we're also not limited to 500 units. So really, we're just gonna go hard, and the guiding directive is just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. So expect to see a lot of new units and bodyguards and legendary companies, and we've even got legendary armies so far. Stuart actually worked on one of them for Prince Gwindor, so that's something we will have access through via script. Oh,
and we're thinking of adding one for Host of Fingon, like Prince of Fingolfin.
Yes.
Like he's a very notable character who deserves his own host as well.
Yeah. A lot of these units you won't be able to get, more than once. It's just sort of like it's kind of cool that this was added in, and it's like thematic and a little bit fluffy. But yeah, that'll actually be one way that Finarfin gets cavalry in the campaign.
One unit.
Vision, when you get a chance, can you go back in game and show the dwarf region?
That's what I'm currently working on.
Valinor.
I'm trying to make the mountains look a bit more like actual mountains. I'm going to show them right now, just so you can see what I'm actually doing.
Valinor will have their own campaign, the War of Wrath campaign.
Yeah, you won't be able to invade them, unfortunately.
Where you're basically playing as Valinor trying to subdue Melkor. That's your goal.
Yeah. That'll be a separate experience, so that won't be really part of the main grand campaign. Got a couple more here. Do dwarves have mountain settlements between their settlements and elven settlements? I always thought they'll be on the elven side of the map, but I see you made a valley for them on the right side of the map. Yes.
So, this is the dwarven region. As you can see, the mountains are extremely green. That's what I'm currently working on. So I'll just hop back out of the game so you can see the changes, which are, important.
But to answer your question, yes, absolutely. They will have a lot of those mountain holds. And that's one of the sides of the map that, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, because we've only got 150 regions on this particular map, there are going to be the max number of regions. And one of the areas that sees a lot of expansion is the eastern side where the dwarves and the Syrian kind of intersect.
As the regions on that side of the map are extremely huge in game right now, so they definitely need a bit of a breakup.
And we saw on the map there with the dwarven settlements, the spaces between the mountains are passable, so you can move armies in the mountains. It's something that was introduced with AGO from DAC.
So yeah, now the mountains look a bit more like mountains.
Hooray!
Except these ones I need to fix.
To answer another question here, the Noldor of Aragon, or Aragian, I don't know how to say it, subbot of DAC has pretty amazing Feanor units. Have they been added into this mod, like the Stormguard, Moonguard, Aragian Avengers, etc.? No, not currently. But we do have plans for, I suppose, like potentially a similar sort of thing in that, certain areas will, Assyrian, for example, will get some really cool Noldor units because of the relationship they have with the Sons of Feanor in the canon. I don't know if that really answers your question, but I just wanted to talk about that. Artorius wants to know, Vision, how your project with creating Lady Galadriel is going.
Well, I currently am prioritizing the campaign, but as soon as I have a stable build, I will 100% make a Lady Galadriel for Artorius to simp in game.
There we go. Let's see. Do we have any other questions here maybe that I missed? No, I think that's everything so far. Stu, did you want to talk a little bit more? We got another one. Hold on. Meanwhile, the sub-mob's wondering. I haven't actually seen them. We could always try talking to them. I mean, I'm always a fan of cool looking units in the mod, and if that's something that we're, able to just hop right in and the creator's okay with that, then absolutely. Otherwise, yeah, we'll have to see. Basically, we have to have a chat with them. Well, let's see. Other than that, we've talked about Iron a little bit. We talked about mercenaries. Talked a little bit about scripting. Do we have any other questions, or is there anything that anyone on the development team wants to maybe talk a little bit about? Maybe a feature you're excited for?
Could go faction by faction, talk about their campaign pros and cons.
I mean, we haven't really established that for all of the factions yet. We could have a little bit of speculation.
Like the factions themselves. You know how Finarfin will probably have 3 separate locations, being Dorthonian, Nargothrond, Pulseria. Might make it.
I think of it more like 2, and then Tolsirion being the bridge between those 2 regions. Like, it's an important region to hold that kind of connects those 2 together.
That might also be an interesting segue into maybe getting a little bit of feedback in terms of something we haven't decided yet, and that would be like start positions. How large they're going to be is something I think that we haven't quite decided yet. So if you guys have opinions on that, if you want to see like a larger start region, or if you prefer to sort of start small and then build big, that is something that we'd be interested in kind of hearing, because obviously you guys have to play the mod. Yeah, so I'd love to hear some opinions on that from both the dev team and from people in the chat.
Is Turan Parambar in the game?
Yes.
So, what degree or what faction will he be in?
He's a general for Finarfin.
That's a great question. Currently, he's a general for Finarfin. I don't know if have we decided anything vis-a-vis Turin? But what faction you want him to be in?
Some sort of script for sure for Finarfin, but
yeah,
for multiplayer right now, he's just a general. But.
Yeah, he jumps around, but he is in the mod right now. What he'll look like in campaign, I don't know yet.
I definitely think there should be some sort of Turin script, like comes in and starts reforming the kingdom.
You build the bridge in Nargothrond, becomes leader. Yep.
Let's see here. Thank you for the fellow's Discord tag. We always trying to have a chat with him.
Oh, no assassins, no priests. I don't.
Yeah, I don't
stay away from.
I don't really know about agents right now. I don't think we've made a concrete decision one way or another.
I think diplomats, spies, and merchants.
I think the assassins, I'm not really a great fan of. Killing Melkor with a level 10
that might
assassin.
be a little bit odd. I think that alone is a good enough reason to maybe not have assassins, but that's a discussion we'll have to have later.
Did you use the info about Iron from Nature of Middle Earth? Great book, by the way.
Horde factions. Tol and Galroth will start Horde, and they will be trying to take Tolsirion.
Oh, that is true. Let's answer the Iron question first. I don't think so, unless in some sort of accidental way I've absorbed something through osmosis or whatever.
I'll be honest, it's pretty close though. Your locations for Iron are I mean,
oh,
he was pretty common sense about where locations of Iron were going to be.
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
When can we get our hands on the campaign mode? We don't generally, because we're a team of volunteers, right? And we all have lives, we all have responsibilities. We don't generally put like a timer on things unless we're 110% sure that we're going to be able to meet that deadline. Because it's disappointing for you guys if we don't make it, and it's frustrating for the team because suddenly they're under a lot of pressure when this is our hobby, not so much our job. So I can't really say
that I can't go MIA for like 4 months, which is something that I'd love to do.
If we started putting a timer on things, I would have to go to like Portugal, and I would have to go to Vision's house, and I would have to beat him up, and nobody really wants that.
It's not ideal at all.
Yeah, I'm lazy. That's expensive. So for now, we're just gonna say when it's done. Horde factions. Yes, a steward brought up. Maybe do you want to talk about that steward? Tolan Gowerhoff
Just
set
like
up the early game.
not much to say. It's just like they're gonna start Horde, and your main goal is trying to capture Silmarillion from Borodreth.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a very hard battle. And I think I don't know what did we decide? You can you had a chance to destroy Tolan Gowerhoff on turn 1 or something like.
Yeah. There's definitely the possibility of that. If that does happen, though, and this kind of segues into another question someone asked, yes, there will be a Glaurung faction, and they will appear in a similar region to Tolan Gowerhoff and Nargothrond and things like that. The plan for Glaurung is that I'm going to make him at some point when I actually have free time again, and yeah, it's a plan. There's already some designs that have been done by Castellan for the faction. I've made their roster, so I have a very strong idea of how I want them to play. They will also be available for play in multiplayer, but you won't be able to play them in the campaign. They're going to be sort of an AI monster pain in the ass faction. But if you do like the look of those units, you won't be kind of cut off from them. You will be able to play them in multiplayer.
There's a few of those AI factions we should touch on. There's Nand and Gortheb will be one. The Avari and Mithrim will not be playable. Just the AI faction.
Yeah. But there's, I mean, if people really, really want them, maybe there's a potential that we'd reconsider that. But currently, the plan is for a lot of those minor factions, like Stewart said, Mithrim, Avari, Nandan Gortheb, and Glaurung, the Brood of Glaurung, to not be playable factions in the campaign. But you will be able to play with them and screw around with the units.
Recruit the units for sure. Because Fingolfin, the House of Fingolfin, still rely upon the Sindar of Mithrim for their armies. So yeah.
Yeah, and you will in some ways have access to some of their units as well. But you just won't at
lots
least
of elven units.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of elven units. You're gonna be drowning in them.
Too many.
What about a flame spewing drake? Yes. So
yes.
I'm going to do Glaurung as a project for my 3D modeling and my animation classes. So it is something, and I am coming to the end of my school. So within the next 6 months or something, you should see some updates on Glaurung.
Also, we have one in the game. We have the Uroloki.
Yeah, we do have some spitting drakes, Uroloki, but we are kind of proxying them with the Hydras from Botet. But they do work well, and they're actually one of Angban's better units. So conceptually, they're there.
And there's an Iron Drake orc unit.
Yeah. There's a few kind of crazy. I don't know if I had a fever dream or something, but I decided to make some fire units based on a reading I did of the Fall of Gondolin, and yeah, so there are some other fire units as well. I had a small idea to reduce stack spam late in the game, and I'm not sure how implementable it is. Maybe have the number of units, and are we dependent on General's command? How does that sound? I like people to have the freedom to build the armies that they want to, and as big as they can kind of construct it. But we do have some plans to reduce stack spam, and that really comes down to the frequency with which you encounter regions that you can actually recruit in a meaningful way from, and things like that. Do we have any elephant type units? Yeah. Oh god, we have so many.
Yeah.
We've got chariots. The Glaurung faction in particular is going to have some. They'll have the first flying unit, because everyone knows I'm not a big fan of flying in Medieval 2. But they will have a flying unit. They will have a bunch of chariots. If you're familiar with Warhammer 2, something similar to the Scourge Runner chariots. Haladin have a chariot right now. They may get a second one, either for multiplayer and campaign, or simply for campaign. Angband has a bunch of beasties. They've got Balrogs. They've got Uroloki.
And we have the monster faction itself.
Yep, Nandon
Really
Gortheb,
don't-
monsters for days. The Avari have a couple, or they have one monster, one big elephant type monster.
one
We've
big angry grandpa.
I think that's one of the bigger achievements of the mod is that our implementation for elephants is about as good as I've seen it. They are pretty balanced. They do have some like strong counters and some soft counters, but not so many that they can't be strong and useful in their own right. Sauron's probably the scariest elephant in the mod at the moment.
Well, he's nasty.
Yeah, he's brutal. How many major playable factions? All of the factions currently in the mod with the Vision, do you mind going to the faction screen for a sec before you quit out?
I can go to probably the custom battles.
Yeah, the custom
Yeah,
battle
sounds
one.
Yeah.
So everything you see there with the exception of the Rebels, Nandon Gortheb, Mithram, and the other factions, Vari and stuff that we've mentioned before. Yeah, those will be your playable factions. All of the major factions are currently in game. I don't think we're waiting on anything else. So you'll have, at a glance here, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, you'll have about 13 playable factions.
Plus Easterlings being split, so...
Oh, 14, yeah, you're right. Will you be able to get access to an allied dead factions units if you recapture their territories? For example, Gondolin is captured and the faction dies, and you recapture it as another elf faction. It's an interesting idea. You will definitely have access to themed units from other factions as mercenaries in a lot of cases. But that specific implementation we haven't really discussed yet, but I do like it as an idea. I think there's a ton of units and a lot of variety in the mod that, it'd be a shame if you weren't able to make use of most of them at one point or another. That being said, there's something to be said for, not getting all your toys at the same time on a single playthrough. I think that does add a lot of replayability. So, potentially, or maybe not in that exact way, but you will definitely have access to a plethora of different factions units. Would there be any minor factions or shadow factions? By shadow faction, you mean sort of like Sauron being the Pope in Third Age and like calling crusades and stuff? Oh, two versions of the same faction. Probably that seems like a practical thing. Like if we do end up having, bandits and stuff like that we will have bandits for like uprisings and whatever. It would make sense. It wouldn't really make a ton of sense if Barad Ithel revolts and there's a bunch of orcs there. So I think it's likely that you'll see some mirror stuff like that. Are there any?
I had a couple people ask me about factions for our campaign. I know DAC has like 26 factions, 24.
Yeah.
They have a lot
something
more.
like that. And since we only have 12, 13, 14. I think the amount of recruitable mercenaries and all the recruitment pools will really be able to diversify that a bit. So even though we only have 14 factions compared to 24 or 26, let's say,
Yeah.
the amount of units, the amount of variety, I think will still be there.
My ideal is that at any given turn, you're moving somewhere in the campaign, and you will be able to, in most cases, find a unit that you didn't know existed. So I would like, exploring the map to be kind of a fun thing, because you're like, well, what kind of weird cracked mercenaries are going to be waiting for me next door? Like, am I going to find, if I'm an orcish faction, am I going to find like some special siege unit, or am I going to find like another flamethrower unit, or is it like a new elephant, or like kind of what is it? So I'd like.
And you can build your armies around that too. Like say if you're Doriath and you're about to invade Feanor or something, and the closer you move toward Feanor's castles, you might pick up some really nice siege units.
Absolutely.
That'll totally influence the way you you go about your warfare.
And beyond that, even like, it's not just you have your base roster and then there's a bunch of mercenaries. You're gonna have campaign specific units. So if Assyrian, for example, they build a certain Noldor building in their capital, and then they get this really powerful heavy infantry unit that's like sword and board, very well suited for frontline combat, which isn't something that Assyrian has a lot of. So the play styles that we've established so far, like now that we've kind of written the rule book and we know how everything kind of plays, now we're free to break those rules as we see fit. So yeah, you'll have less factions, but the diversity that you'll have within the factions is, I think it's going to be something like you maybe haven't seen elsewhere, except in maybe mods like EV2 where they have so many mercenaries. It's like a similar approach where you can add this regional flavor to a lot of your armies, and make up for some of your built-in shortcomings. The way, say, if you were playing the Roman Republic in another mod, you'd get a lot of Gallic cavalry, because your equities are sort of like baseline and just okay. You'll see a lot of that.
Are there any scripts or anything for non-canon kinslaying? Gondolin invading Doriath, for example.
Oh my goodness. No, hadn't discussed that, but it's something that will happen.
Non-canon scripts are tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I tried to implement something like that, Finn would probably string me up by my boots.
I agree.
He very much appreciates the sandbox aspect of the game, and in a lot of cases I agree with him. And this would be one of those cases, where we don't want to put the campaign on rails. Obviously, we do want some of the more like watershed moments to be represented well, but in terms of the minutia of how you go about your campaign, we can incentivize you in certain ways. Like if you make nice with the dwarves, then maybe you get some bonuses or something to your trade. But if you wipe them all out, then maybe you get some new badass units. So there's a choice there, and you get to decide what's more important to you. Will we import any units from DAC or Third Age? The intention is to import things if we feel that they're like appropriate thematically and visually.
I mean, we've kind of already done that anyway. We've like used a lot of existing textures and models. And
yeah, we have done that already. It's a big
goal, yeah.
But at the same time, we did that when we were starting out, and that was mostly just to get things into the engine, get sort of a proof of concept going. So over time, you've seen more of those start to be phased out with like new reskins. Stu's done a lot of work recently, updating a lot of factions. So you're going to see a little bit less and less of that, of things that are a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Not ahistorical, but there's a word for it.
Non-canon.
Something like that. Just not appropriate for the time and the setting. So we're going to try to avoid that wherever possible. But that said, like Stu mentioned, they do exist in the mod currently.
Yeah, it's just like the Medieval 2, like modding, modding kind of pools.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And you can't really escape it.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Everyone's.
Be mod.
We all share. It's great. It's like a big inbred family. Are there two factions for Uprising? We answered that one. Non-canon kinslings. What about re-emerging factions? Might be helpful for roleplay to revive your ally faction through some events. I would love to see that.
Well, you have Mars already uses a script that does that, so in terms of implementing it, it would be very simple, essentially copy-paste. And
yeah.
But I think for that, you might as well add in an option for players to choose if they want to have that enabled or not, because if players are not going to use them, so you might as well just save the turn time on the script. So maybe a choice at the start of the campaign, so that people may choose if they want the script or not.
Yeah, I'd be very much fine with that. I see no reason not to have that for people who want it, but having a choice of whether or not you turn it on or off is probably the best case scenario.
And you could ideally do it for most mods. For example, I love to have that for a garrison mod, because I know some people like garrison mods. I personally hate them, so I dislike when mods force it down my throat, so yeah, that might be ideal for every single script that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Any Shattered Alliance type campaign? I'm assuming.
That's just like another campaign.
That means
so
no allies. Everyone's neutral, right?
That's essentially sandbox, I guess.
That's we're doing the War of Wrath campaign for Valinor and Melkor.
Right.
That's kind of what we're doing instead of Shattered Alliances. We're just doing that. That's our alternate campaign.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you will have lots of like sandbox moments in the grand campaign, but correct me if I'm wrong, Stu. You probably know the answer to this. The Shattered Alliance thing, is that just is that a specific campaign, or is it? Because it sounds to me like that's just turning off all alliances and everyone just beats the crap out of each other.
Much.
Yeah,
it could be fun.
It's something that people like on games like this.
Yeah, I think there's no predetermined allies. It's like Doriath and Angband, or Doriath and Nandorngothab are neutral. They're not instantly at war, and you can ally them.
I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing if people have the choice.
I actually prefer instead of a no alliance, a all war. So you're permanently at war with everyone, just to actually see how good you are as a player.
I think that would be hilarious.
I will say would be awesome. One of my favorite games growing up was Empire at War, Star Wars. And there was a campaign mode, or it might have even been from a mod, Galaxy Divided, where there were 126 planets, and there were probably 8 factions or whatever, and each one started with a single planet, single region, and you could build out from there rather than having your predetermined Empire core, Rebel Alliance, etc., etc. Probably not possible to do here just because of the way money and population and resources work.
We could do it. We could use it. You could do a script that changes the king's purse for people. So, if, for example, AI goes bankrupt, you could give them a bit of money so that they don't completely go bankrupt. Yeah. But that would be only for a sandbox type campaign, not for the standard campaign. I think it would be nice to try and implement, to be honest.
There's an interesting. This isn't really so much of a question. XY here mentioned that you might be uncontested in the number of elven factions. Again, not really a question, but that is something that we have discussed at length. And I can tell you that while there are a lot of elven factions, not all of them are going to be united. As I'm sure anybody who's read the story will know that peoples of Balerion were quite fractious. So you will, there's going to be a lot of elven factions, but there's also going to be a lot of, hostility between some of those factions. And there's also going to be a good amount of evil factions dispersed throughout the map. And of course there's going to be rebels thrown in there as well. So it'll be far from a united elven front. So if anyone was concerned or curious about that, that is something that we've given some thought to already.
I like XY's next question. Will there be a good river network to fast travel along?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Currently, no. But in the future,
they're not big enough.
Yes.
Yeah. Once we.
Go
ahead.
No, it's just that currently all the rivers are just the ones that you can walk over with bridges, because It's a bit too much work to make them be able to have boats going up them. Yeah, but in the future we'll most likely, if not 100%, do that because it adds so much to the game that is probably a good idea.
Particularly for a faction that kind of relies on their rating, like the Philothron, is a big part of the playstyle.
And especially for factions.
And not all
covered
factions
in
can
rivers.
like build boats too. We're gonna like have it pretty restricted. So Philothron have a big advantage over that.
Yeah, Philothron I think will be one of the few factions that has like a true navy. I mean, most people will have
like the basic boat. Yeah.
You'll have the basic boat, so you can like make river crossings, but not a whole lot else. Like if someone rolls up to your little dinky merchant fleet with a warship, you're probably gonna have a bad time.
Plus, for a faction like Assyrian or something, they got their whole region, their whole star is loaded with rivers, and if they can't use them to their advantage, then, well.
Exactly, it would be a logistics nightmare. It'd be like
up with like some cool elven like simple ship thing, instead of just long ship. It'd be like
a river barge or something simple. So yeah, all factions will have like a boat, so that they can use terrain features. But the Philothron will be, I think, one of the only factions that has a true navy.
Yeah, everyone is gonna have a boat because they all need. Like if you want to do a world conquest, you need to get the island, so you need a boat to get there. So yeah, at least for that you have a boat.
Except for Angband.
OO wants to know if fire arrows will still only be for rune. There is no rune in our mod. They are called the Easterlings. They are not rune. Yeah, totally different people.
Also, lots of factions have fire arrows currently.
Tons
it's restricted to high tier archers, so you don't get like the same kind of spam that you do in other campaigns. But lots of people,
especially in base game.
Yeah, there's nothing super restrictive about it. It's just high tier archers happen to have access to that ammo type, and that's it. Oh, everyone went quiet. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Just make sure the stream didn't suddenly explode.
How will it be fighting Angband? Will they be aggressive?
They'll be aggressive.
Turtle?
They will be aggressive.
I have the feeling they'll be very aggressive.
Well, we'll try to make them aggressive. Of course, the AI likes to bug out, but we'll give them every tool to be aggressive, especially the player.
I'd like to see Angband in particular have some more substantial garrison buildings, so that just because of the quality of their units as well, when it comes to fighting them in the campaign when you're the player and the AI is Angband, I think that might be a crush that they end up needing. Someone wants to ask if you could zoom out quickly so they could take a look at the whole
map. They're not gonna take a look at a lot. Because I'm currently just... Well, this is essentially the ground and tree map. This is the climate map that determines what type of trees and ground you have. For example, this color gives you the black tint that you have on the floor in, for example, Mordor. And this gives a mountain its gray color, else they'll be extremely green. I might as well just hop in the game.
To answer your question there, we don't have BP or javelins or axe throwers. We do have AP javelins, but we do have some flame units. So fire generally across every unit that has access to a fire projectile in the mod. They're quite good against lightly armored or medium armored targets or things that don't have a great shield value. But heavily armored units tend to stand up to them pretty well. So we do have some other BP sort of things. We've got Pyre Wolves for Tolan Gauhoff, and we've got the Iron Drakes for Angband. But for most heavily armored units, it's really more of a nuisance. It just kind of can knock them over and can cause them a bad time that way. But light units can suffer quite badly at the hands of those units. But they are, like, Pirewolves are not super fast, and they don't have great defense, so they can kind of be shot to death. And the Iron Drakes they're a foot unit, so they can be swamped. And they're a little bit sensitive when it comes to their line of sight. So they're generally best used in tandem with, like, trolls. Like, build up a big blob of things around the trolls, and then you just bathe them in fire with the Iron Drakes.
Any Nafatoon grade unit? I think those are only the Ash Priests and the First Refusers. Right?
Yeah, there's the First Refusers, there's the Ash Priests, and I think there's the Dwarven Miners as well.
Oh, right, yep.
And it's really more of a morale debuff, but it's not enormous the way that Nafatoons are, where you can route an entire formation with them.
Yeah, Vision, if you want to go back down to the Mao's Assyrian that you edited before.
Yeah.
Down at that river place. Go there and then go a little to the west. There should be a little forest.
Yeah, Nimbrathil.
Nimbrathil. That would be...
Has to be pines? Okay.
Those would be birch trees, but I'm not sure. That might also be... I mean... Little to the... There we go. Yeah, those are supposed to be birch trees. I don't know what region that would be. Mediterranean?
No, they're currently Mediterranean.
Alpine?
So
Alpine,
I'll
maybe?
just test the colors, every single color.
They are gold though. Like,
So
those you could put the Malor in there. Like,
I could spread some mallow in there to kind of mix it up.
right. Yeah, I mean, they're silver birches, but they got golden.
We don't have any Mumakil in the first stage, but there are Balrogs currently in the mod. I don't think we have plans for Eagles. There's only... Well, there is a Valinor unit that might... They're like the Heralds of Manwë that I was considering making, like, Maiar mounted on the back of Eagles, which, so...
What?
You could see them... You could see them in that way. But there is also the Brood of Glaurung, who does have, like, a Drake riding unit. That's been planned for quite a while. So, very, very limited. I really don't like flying in Medieval 2. It's not true flight, it's just sort of a weird, tricksy illusion. Has birch been added? You can make that for...
Yeah, they can still die to stakes. Come on.
I think birch. I mean, you'd have to.
Like
I have to change
tied to
the
the weapon.
I have to change the textures, but it should be fine. It's not a problem.
Not hard.
Felbeast is more of a
But it's
third-age
not
thing.
in the game. I'm pretty sure there are no birch trees in the game.
I haven't seen any, but maybe someone has made a texture somewhere.
If you're thinking Felbeast in terms of, like, the big creepy bird dragon things that you see the Nazgul riding, that's specifically a product of the Third Age and something that, like, Sauron made, or I guess corrupted, whatever. But it's not something that we're looking to add to the mod. It would be out of place. There are a few flyers. Maybe we can make Ankh-Caligon the Black as a joke unit that just, like, obscures the entire map and then crashes the game. But other than that, I think
Only
we're
if you
going
lose.
to keep it to a minimum. Who has access to ants?
to ants?
The Green
Syrian.
Elves. Yeah, specifically they have access to ants. The Avari have access to horns. Giant Spiders is Nandan Gortheb. They've got a whole bunch of spider units, including one that explodes. It's a bit weird to use,
That's a great unit.
but it's quite a meme. It's very funny. Frustrating when it doesn't
Well,
do its job, but just actually there's, I mean, I guess there's the Grandfather. He's like a really big horn. He's like vaguely humanoid shape. And he does actually, he's a living artillery piece. We have a few of those in the game, and he's one of them. But the Ents for Assyrian they're purely a melee thing. But they're one of the few elephants that can actually hide in the woods, so that's kind of cool. Actually, they're the only elephant that can hide in the woods. Let's see what else here. Ash Priests are just so bad. It's very true. Stu and I are actually working on a reskin for them as well, which I'm to do my part on at some point this year. And Toll and Goudhoth, I think in general, there's some plans to give them a visual overhaul. To divert a little bit away from campaign for a few minutes, there is a new patch that's been in the works. It's not going to include the campaign stuff. It will include possibly some new scenarios, but it's going to have a lot of multiplayer updates, including visual ones, for, I think, like 3 or 4 factions. Like, it's pretty substantial. There's going to be some new unit types in the game, including new siege weapons, and basically just, it's a pretty solid update all around. Caligon being Scourge of Crest game is 100% lore accurate. Yeah, pretty much. Shelob, unique hero. Shelob didn't really exist, I don't think, at this point. I mean, I don't actually know.
I think he did, but he didn't.
Jesus.
There are
She's
there
not
are
in
big
any
spiders.
story. I'm sure she existed in the first days, but she didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
doing.
there are big spiders, not specifically Shelob. You may see a unique Ungoliant model at some point. We may take one of the existing spider models and kind of edit it and spice it up a little bit. So you may see Ungoliant as like, you know, a what if kind of thing. That's not a guarantee, but it might be fun to play around with a little bit. But yeah, so there's lots of spiders, not specifically Shelob.
Will there be any faction merges mid-campaign through event?
Oh, that's a great question.
Also, any horde factions like the Timurids and Mongols that appear mid-game via script.
The Glaurung, I think,
Glaurung will be one of them.
Yeah,
will show up.
Early game, as Stu mentioned before, you'll have Tolan Goudhoth, who starts as a horde faction. Other than that, I don't know. That is potentially something that we could play around with a little bit with, say, the Easterling factions, to start in the early game as a horde, but it's not something we've really nailed yet. Let's see. Any faction merges? I don't know. I don't think we've really discussed that. Fingolfin, I think, would be the most likely one. I think there's some plans to have, not necessarily as their own fleshed out faction, but like as an AI faction, like a minor faction. This actually answers a question you had earlier, with, say, you know, the House of Hador and things like that, and the Elves of Mithrim. That might be something that Fingolfin is able to do. I think Assyrian and Stu and I discussed Assyrian and Avari potentially forming some sort of alliance in the middle of the campaign. So it is being discussed, but there's a lot of ideas flying around at the moment, and nothing aside from Assyrian and Avari. I think that's a pretty concrete one. But other than that, I don't think there's anything concrete at the moment.
They're a human faction.
Yes, there are. There's 3 off the top of my head. 2 Easterling and 1 Halidin.
And there's also, I mean, the Bayar sub-faction for Feanor. I don't know if it'll be I think maybe
They might be an
would
AI
be-
minor faction. That's just sort of a speed bump.
Plus, there's, as far as mercenary units go, I believe Finarfin around the regions of Dorthonion are going to have a ton of human merch.
Yeah, I mean,
all of Baron's crew and Barahir's crew all up there. They're going to be.
you'll have a ton. You'll have a ton of human units to pull from for sure. What's the ratio of factions according to race? I think we've got. I mean, some of the Elven factions combine humans. Like, humans end up being like half their roster. Fingolfin is one. who makes especially extensive use of their humans. Feanor is the other one, and they're all like important parts of those factions. Like they perform roles that there's no elven equivalent for.
And we got three solo human factions.
And 3 solo human factions. There's 1 dwarven faction. They might get split into 2 for the. I think they are planning to be split into 2 for the campaign. So there you go. We have 15, and that might be another option for confederation or confederacy. I don't know how you would say that.
There's three orcish factions.
There's Tol, Nan, Angband, Glaurung, and I think that's it for the orcish factions.
Plus, like you said earlier, as far as evil factions go, dwarves did evil things, Feanor did evil things.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of
Everyone did evil things.
Elf on elf violence.
You'll see some nasty things from Feanor in the campaign as well, especially once the Silmarillion start to come into play. Maybe that's a good little segue to kind of talk a little bit about the Silmarils and some of the things we had planned for them. One of the things was having them be an ancillary that you can win from, winning battles and things like that, or possibly as gifted through scripts just randomly, just to kind of shake things up a little bit. But the more of them that you acquire, the less certain factions like the Sons of Feanor tend to like you. And eventually, once you've got, I think, more than one of them, basically war is inevitable with them. And if you ever acquire 3 at the same time in the campaign, then war is instantaneous. We had a question previously about Last Stand and like scripted armies. That would be one such occasion where you see some scripted armies from Feanor with some pretty scary stuff. And given the amount of variety that you'll have in campaign, it's not just going to be 20 footmen of Amaras or something like that. It's going to be a big mix of like mercenaries, very very capable and very like cosmopolitan army that can really throw you a big curveball late in the campaign.
What are the conditions for Sauron to spawn?
You start with him in the first battle, Tol and Gowroth. He'll be around right from the get-go. I don't know if he'll be able to respawn. I think it would make sense to be able to bring some of the Maiar back over and over again. That's something we can definitely look into. But he'll be there from the word go.
Essentially Nazgul.
Pretty much. And no, there's no wizards. The Istari are, again, that's more of a Third Age thing.
A couple of 1,000 years too early for them.
More like 7 or 8.
4. Yeah.
7 or 8.
Let's see here.
I saw some new people hop up. Maybe there'll be new questions.
Yeah, I mean we've covered quite a lot here. Can't wait to get sandwiched between Angband and angry Feanorians. Yep, that is definitely a problem, especially if you're Doriath.
Best kind of sandwich.
I think it's been a pretty decent length of time there, and my throat's starting to hurt, and I need to have some breakfast. So I may have to sign off or mute my mic or whatever. Silmarils, will they appear in campaign? Yes, I did just talk about that, and they'll be sort of a catalyst for change, if you will, shaking up the established order and severely pissing off the Sons of Feanor faction and maybe making them, beeline straight for you to reclaim the birthright. But
if you gotta go, I got about 30 minutes left. I can switch my mic to it.
For sure. I'll just mute mine. Just give me a hot second here, and I will. I'll leave the stream on, and I'll come back and I'll check in a little bit. But
all right.
See ya.
Let's see. I got about 15 to 20 more minutes, so I can hopefully answer some quick questions for the new people that just joined.
So you gotta keep turning some mountains from green to gray.
Yeah. Keep working on that. Oh, let's see.
I might change the other forest that's supposed to be birch to melon trees. See how it looks.
Yeah. I mean, technically, birches are silver, but they have gold leaves, so it would make sense.
Yeah, temporary fix.
Yep. I know I can't. Map will look a whole lot better once we get the resources on it. Once we get the strat models for the different cities. So like Eglarest and Brathambar.
Set models are really the major thing that we are missing.
No, but when you go to the map,
I mean visually. I mean visually. We could probably use some.
Technically, there is no Malorn. Malorn came from Valinor. In the Second Age, the elves from Valinor gave it to the Númenóreans when they traveled there. Then the Númenóreans gave it to Gil-galad in Lindon. Couldn't grow there, so he gave it to Galadriel, and she took it to Lorien. So no, there's technically no Malorn in Beleriand, but birch trees look kind of like Malorn, just a little less magic.
Temporary fix, don't worry.
What are the goals for the dwarf campaign? Who will be their main opponents? I don't think there's going to be a singular dwarf campaign, but obviously the Silmaril script will come into play there.
So instead of probably having a certain faction to kill off, you might as well just have, like, for example, 50 regions, and you make your choices essentially, because you can go one or the other.
Standard. I will say for the main opponents for the dwarves, they're right up against Syrian is right there. Feanor is really close, and obviously, if the Silmaril script, all that takes place, Doriath is just asking to be conquered.
Poor Doriath.
Any good way to implement underground travel as fast travel through mountains? Vision, I'm assuming not.
No, not really. You could make some. Probably you could make some scripts for impossible terrain and you could give the dwarves the ability to pass through certain terrain, but to make it like a single path, that would be extremely hard to do. It's not impossible, probably.
I have heard of extra movement speed through mountains, or I've heard of that, but have not heard of any way to move under mountains. Will the Sons of Feanor get all the Silmarils? Feanor return.
There will be some paths inside the mountains where the dwarves will be able to travel.
Right.
But that if you take the cities that control those passes, you'll be able to use them too. So it's not a dwarf only thing.
And sorry, Ticker, no. If all the Silmarils are returned to the Sons of Feanor, Feanor stays dead. Feanor is. I think we're planning the campaign to be right after the Dagor Bragollach, right before Toll takes Minas Tirith from Narfin. So Feanor's dead. He'll stay dead. Won't work. How will the Girdle of Melian work? I think the plan for the Girdle is a little, obviously, well, Vision can show you on the map.
Yeah, I will.
We're planning to have around the edges of Doriath, there'll be a little thicker forest and trees. So
You won't be able to go past them.
there will be some impassable parts in there. Obviously, eventually, if there'll be a script where either Melian leaves, Thingol dies, the girdle disappears, and then you'll be able to traverse the girdle. Yeah, it'll be a script related thing. It'll be impassable until you fulfill certain things, and then once it happens, you can
It's
invade.
essentially as the Americas in Medieval 2.
The expansion. Yep. Posted a question in the Discord suggestion. Let me see. Oh. A map on the stream. Maybe these mountains should be added. Let's see. I think we have the mountains on the west by Vinyamar. I think those are there.
They're probably there. I'll just take a look.
We used a different map.
I can show you the
Definitely
map.
have the Iron Mountains up there by Angband. I'm pretty sure we have those. And I think the mountains down by Tolgalen and Osirian, I think we wanted those to be more flat, just so Osirian can have a. Oh, actually, I think near the south, I think we have more foothills, not impassable mountains, but I think there is heightened terrain over there. But Raphael, Girdle of Melian and Gondolin being hidden. I think Gondolin will have the same sort of thing as the Girdle. I think Gondolin will be unconquerable. You will not be able to traverse into it and attack Gondolin until Gondolin makes the first move. So you'll be presented with a choice. You can sally out as Gondolin and go out and, do your normal campaign things. But once you do, the pass is open and now you're open to attack. Obviously, you'll still have you might have a fort there. You might have a couple siege battles. That'll be one of the escalation sieges where there'll be 2 or 3 battles leading up to the actual city. But yeah, once Gondolin makes the move and leaves the city, it is discoverable and open for attack.
Currently, the girdle is essentially just a thick barrier of trees. But that is because we aren't working on scripts yet. So this is the easiest and most simple way to create a girdle effect. So people can't get past through. Gondolin is currently accessible, but seeing as this is still essentially a build test, there's no scripts, so it will remain open and will remain like this until we actually do implement some scripts for it.
Vision, if you could go to the west coast right now.
So a bit more south, Vinyamar. This is where you wanted to see, yeah.
Go to Vinyamar. Let me see.
The mountains look green, but they are here. And I can show you the map that we used.
There you go. Yeah, there's. I mean, they're foothills.
What
You got the big mountains there, and then the little foothills below it.
In front?
Yeah.
I can change this like right now, to be honest.
Yeah, those should be snow capped. Well, I don't know. Maybe not snow capped. Pretty moderate.
So it's here.
It's overlooking the ocean. It's built into the cliff.
Oh, it's a cliff.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, I want to see how this looks in game.
castle, city, fortress, overlooking the ocean.
I can't place it on top of mountains, but I can place the city on top of hills.
All right, I gotta head out soon, so 5 more minutes for any last minute questions.
And show off Vienna, the city.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, it's rather impossible to tread the mountains. The game does this.
Doesn't look any different.
And then just a bit more green, I guess. Just the game dislikes.
I mean, that looks good. Just weird having the city like sunken in.
Yeah, but there's just no other way of doing it. I can do it like this, and hopefully it will work. Max, it will crash my game. Yeah, it won't be any better than this. So I can either make it completely flat or stretch this hill a bit more closer to the city. And that's as best as you can have it. Your mic is cutting again.
Just gotta be sure there's a way in and a way out.
Of what? Of the city?
Yeah. So it's not surrounded by mountains, kind of like Gondolin. Gotta make sure there's paths in and out.
There is a passage, and you have to have it, else for example, a Gondolin will always have to have a passable terrain, else any general inside won't be able to move at all. Even if you change it with a script.
Is the House of the Mole in the game at all? Currently, no, but they may be one of those scripted units, scripted houses for the Gondolin battle. I know Meglin will probably be a character for Angband in that scenario. No, currently House of the Mole is not in the game, but possibly a scripted unit, specifically if Gondolin itself gets attacked. All right, Vision. I am out of here.
Feel free to close the stream. Because I don't know how to do it.
All right. Talk to you later.
See ya.